Hey everybody, Brad here with TWC Racing and car number 4602, the 4th Gen 4Runner. Hey, just wanted to give you guys a race recap. We've been trying to get this out to everybody. We wanted to make sure we had all of our stuff together and some supporting photos and videos. So here it goes. So our 2023 race recap for TWC Racing. So I'll kind of start. Everybody's been kind of asking, hey, how was your time on the lake bed? How did it go? What did you do? Tell us about it. A lot of our folks back here at the dealership that weren't able to make it out, and family and friends are obviously curious about what's going on. So I will tell you guys, starting from day one, the pace was pretty fast and furious for the entire team. We were scheduled to do a shock tuning with Phil from Liberty Mountain Fab on the morning of day one. So we arrived in the lake bed late the night before, and we got up there, had Phil take a look at the truck. One of the ADS representatives were there who was super knowledgeable, and they started looking at it and realized that due to the limited up travel and an unbalanced shock shaft measurements in the rear, all the mounting points needed to be cut off and refabricated. So it took the team all day. We went back, busted our butts, and 15 hours later, after remounting everything and adjusting everything and fixing the geometry, we were ready for actual shock tuning. So showed up the next morning, met with Phil. He did a great job. We went through it, ran some stuff, took them off, took them on, and basically got it as dialed in as we could hope for, and we were pretty excited about it. So we were feeling pretty confident, pretty froggy, hadn't had a chance to do any pre-running yet, so we decided to go out that night and hit some rock trails. Big mistake. 30 minutes later, I had a blown steering rack, and we hadn't even made it to our first rock trail. So all day 3 was spent replacing a steering rack that night and all the next day. So huge shout out to Marlin Crawler for delivering a replacement rack to the lake bed. They've been super supportive to our race program, and we're grateful. So anyway, day 4, we basically, after we got the steering rack replaced, we had planned on doing some pre-running, and I was going to follow Trent Roberts, who's my teammate. But dust lung, though, was affecting my co-driver, Scott Kerrigan. And he had been wrenching on the car for 35 plus hours in 3 days. He needed a little R&R, and so I elected to follow Trent by myself. So we took off to go do the rock lap and hit Spooners and outer limits and attempt the sand hill, and then go back and do the qualifying course just to get the 4Runners, get it out and test it out. We hadn't done anything with the truck and the rocks since reconfiguring everything and adding the portals and everything else. So all was going pretty well. The 4Runner was handling great until Chocolate Thunder. So we went to go attempt the right line at Chocolate Thunder, and in the process I snapped a rear 35 spline shaft inside the portal, demolished the rear drive line, and sadly this meant more work for the team, and they were already feeling the pressure. So we had to get it back, replace the drive line, and take a look at those portals and get them apart. So luckily, 74 Weld was amazing. They came over and like rock stars provided support, helped us get those things apart, take a look at them, gave us some spares, and were super helpful. So, I can't thank them enough for the support. We elected to save the truck for race day, considering we were down to the very backups on spare parts. And the 4Runner, unfortunately, at this point, had only seen a small portion of the course. And with an entirely new car, it was not going to get any additional seat time. So no desert and only 2 of the required rock trails meant no qualifying, and we would have to pre-run the course with the Can-Am. So this was far from what we had planned, but hey, as they say, that's racing, so it is what it is. By day 6, Scott was back to himself, and we had a great productive day in the desert. We ran lap 1 in the side-by-side. We both felt the desert loop pretty straightforward, and we were confident the 4Runner would perform well, as long as we were conservative and didn't push it too hard. So day 7 rolls around. We at least decided we wanted to venture out and at least walk the rock trails, because we didn't know if the Can-Am would make it. But hey, to our surprise and a little bit of a chuckle, the Can-Am performed pretty amazingly in the rocks. We hammered through all the remaining rock trails, with the exception of Chocolate Thunder in those, because that was part of the qualifying course. And it was great. So thing handled well. We were able to see everything. And then, one cool thing, we were able to get some help from Jeremy Jones. He and his team were out there taking a look at remote pit too. And our iPad was dying. We were like, hey, do you guys know which way to go? And they were like, yeah, follow us. We're going that way. Highlight of the day, after getting through Aftershock, Jeremy pulls over, and in so many words, these weren't the exact words because they were a tad more colorful. colorful, but he said, no more messing around. We're moving. Keep up. He was very serious about it. So that was fun. We raced back to Hammertown through the desert, the remainder of that loop of the rock trail. So that was a lot of fun, and thanks to him for helping us out. And his team, they were super kind. So the rest of the time, we tried our best to rest, get mentally prepared for Friday. We prepped some tool storage. We met with our pit support crew, who is DFR. Big shout out to them. They did a great job. And then the team did an amazing job of checking over the car. We went through everything, and lo and behold, Jason was crawling under the car, and we discovered at 10 p.m. the night before the race that all of our differential front bolts were missing and all the bushings were gone. So literally the diff was about to fall out. So once again, big shout out to Marlon Crawler, who literally came racing over to our pit, pulled the bolts and bushings from his personal vehicle to get us to the green flag on Friday. So we're super grateful for that. The team and Scott, the team sent Scott and I to bed so they could work their magic on the car. I think they were like, hey, you guys need to get out of here. Quit thinking about this. And then Scott, Ryan, Jason, Kent, and Greg and Gavin literally spent the rest of the night getting the thing ready to go and fixing the issue. So, hey, race day's here. It's Friday. We woke up. It was chilly. My nerves were definitely going. This is going to be my first ever big race like this and first King of the Hammers. We were going through final preparations, getting ready to strap in the race car. Being surrounded by the team and my two oldest daughters being there was super calming for me. I was grateful for that. We were staged in Hammertown in the parade of cars. Cars started moving faster than I thought, which was great. And when the green flag dropped, we hit the gas, and all I could remember was my co-driver's instructions, Scott saying, no jumping. So laugh out loud, I wanted to race around there and get that thing going, but I didn't. So I listened, and our race day began pretty uneventfully. So we maintained a reasonable pace in the desert, sticking to our game plan of saving the car for the rocks. Every time I would get north of 60 miles an hour, Scott would remind me to back it down and take care of the old girl. So as we cruised the desert lap, Scott and I joked about a nickname for the 4Runner. We both agreed we would name her at the end of the day because her name would be revealed to us. So we skipped remote pit 1 because we were feeling good and brought her into the backside of Turkey Claw without much issue. Once there, we ran into a traffic jam of rigs trying to get up the steep climb at the backside of Turkey Claw. So once it was our turn, the 4Runner came to life, clawing its way up the steep and loose trail. We were pumped with how she rolled past cars that were stuck. Turkey Claw was pretty chewed up, and given the fact there was an overturned vehicle, we elected for Scott to get out and make sure we took smart lines down. So we made it safely to main pit, took on some fuel, and did a full check of the vehicle, including nut and bolting the whole thing. Our decisions paid off because we rolled into the main pit and back out in 11th place on the first lap time. So that was exciting. So back out into the desert we went. At one point, we even had a helicopter overhead for a while. We dropped into spooners, and the car's additional 3.8 inches of ground clearance from the 74 weld portals was definitely making a difference. So we are a tad wide at 92 inches, but it does make for a stable car. So we stayed in spooners all the way down, and when we hit the big drop in the pinch rock, unfortunately, us trying to get around that with our car length and our width, it got too bound up and exploded the front driveline. So unfortunately, we had to drag her out of the way and to clear the way for traffic, as well as get it replaced. So luckily, Scott, with 20 years as a master Toyota diagnostic technician, definitely paid off. So he made short work of the driveline. So I helped a little, but mostly just tried to stay out of the way. This was a costly 1-hour delay. It required dropping the skid plate, and it was a huge bummer. We saw cars pass us up on the hill above, and I apologize to Scott for putting us in that situation because it appeared that we were supposed to bail out of spooners since there was a bypass up above us that I didn't know about. So anyway, lesson learned, and next year I will make sure that I have better clarity on where the bypasses are and if they're allowed. But hey, once back up and running, we jumped into outer limits, which was definitely plugged up. There was a vehicle disabled in the main line. Luckily, they were asking if our winch was strong enough to pull them out. We said, yeah, we got a 12K winch. So we used our winch to pull them back out of the race line because they needed to repair their car and get underneath it, but they were worried about getting run over. So we were happy to help. We had to rub them up pretty good as we climbed past them with our width. We winched a couple more times getting up the last third of that trail, but we made our way up to remote pit 2, so everything went pretty well. So we needed fuel at that point, and unfortunately a lot of TLC. Our control arm mounts needed to be welded back to the frame. Our diff bolts had exited the chat again, along with some other issues. One thing we never had to change was a tire. I will say those BFGs we got from Big O Tires in Walnut Creek, those things rock. They were impressive. And it took a while, but DFR and the team got us back out on the course. So next stop was the Sand Hill. There was a Jeep blocking the line and a couple other cars waiting to attempt it. As they were trying to get up, they made some good-sized 35-inch holes trying to get up that one part of it to the right line. And we waited for them to clear, and a course worker informed us that most of the cars were going around to the bypass and that he was about to go mark it. We knew that we were capable of making it up as we had done it during pre-running. We gave it a good running start, got to where the holes from the Jeep were, and had to back down. So we elected to go around and not hold up anyone else's chance who could have made it quickly. This would prove to be another costly mistake, as the bypass was blocked with a broken car coming down and another vehicle repairing a driveline. So I will say 100 yards up the trail after we wait for it to clean up, we came to a super off camber blind transition, and to avoid rolling it over, I goosed it a little bit when I felt the driver's side rear tire leave the ground. This proved to be too much for the steering arm, and it pulled out the threads, and unfortunately we were broke again. So we didn't have a spare. Scott and I were racking our brains trying to find a solution. And then literally while we had the car disassembled and we were going through it, another Toyota truck, number 37, was coming behind us and rolled in that same spot. So luckily Scott and I were there. We sprang over there, helped him get out of the car. They had some issues with the window nets and the seat and the doors getting opened and the harnesses. So, the new mission was to help those guys get their truck right-sided and get them helped out. The community and the spirit of helping one another is what drew me to King of the Hammers in the first place. And I knew they were in a tough spot, and we were pulling winch line and trying to find good tie-off points that wouldn't slide to get them helped out. So as Scott was helping finish up with them, I decided to look at the steering knuckle. I'm the least mechanical person on the team, but I felt like if I could get the threads started, I could tighten it enough to get out of the canyon because it was getting dark. And so I was able to hammer it in. I got a wrench on it and got it tight. And then once Scott gave it the go-ahead, we were able to reposition the 4Runner and use our rear winch to flip the other truck 360 degrees back onto its wheels. So, like I said, later that night, Scott and I both agreed we were glad God put us in that trail to help those guys out when they rolled, because it could have been a lot worse. So after they assured us they were good to go, we set off gently and navigated our way back through the trails. We got all the way up with our Band-Aided repair and back down, and we don't even know where we left off. Our iPad died, and we kept driving through and kept seeing VCPs and kept going until we knew we were past the time frame. So, and luckily our repair held up. So, definitely hard to see at night, and it was definitely a good learning experience. So in the end, we made it through and got back to the race course, or got back to camp and to pit. We didn't finish. It was a DNF, unfortunately. I wish I wouldn't have made those costly mistakes, and it was a great learning lesson. I would have put us in a much better position to have finished. I can't say enough good things about Scott's spotting and calm demeanor. He was super helpful. And as we drove back to Hammertown, under the 4Runner's own power, the nickname came to me, Cross Thread. So I cross-threaded the crap out of that steering knuckle, and it got us home. So we laughed and came and settled on the name Cross Thread. So I was super impressed with how our bomb-proof Marlin crawler kit held up. That thing is one thing we've never had problems with. And despite those initial issues, the 74 portals held up great. There was no issues on race day. The Dirty Life beadlocks held up amazing and looked fantastic the whole time. And all things considered, it was our first ever off-road race outside of one short course event. And neither Scott or I had ever wheeled any trails at Johnson Valley other than Chocolate Thunder and Turkey Claw prior to us arriving in the lake bed. So with a car that we had just completely revamped with zero runtime. So we can't complain too much. We were super excited, and we'll be way better prepared next year. I do want to say thanks to Dave Cole and the team for the information, and all the guys, the racers that participated in the rookie Zooms. Those were super informational, and I was grateful for those. And I know that took a lot of time and effort and energy to put that together, that program, so we were super thankful for it. I want to thank Nick and Tom and Price Family Dealerships for supporting this endeavor. Thanks to my co-driver, our entire team, and my amazing wife and family. So I know I'm probably leaving out some people, and I apologize if I did. Please forgive me for that. So that's it for the recap. Thanks.